Hello and welcome to News in Depth here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Poland's economy has just crossed the $1 trillion mark, joining what Prime Minister Donald Tusk calls, quote, the exclusive club of the world's top economies. During his visit to Washington, President Karol Nawrocki announced Donald Trump has invited Poland to attend next year's G20 summit in Miami. But does this signal real membership or just a symbolic diplomacy? Well, to discuss what this means for Poland's global economic standing, we're joined by TVP World's business editor, Jakub Kapiszewski. Kuba, welcome. And apologies for mispronouncing your name again.
No, sir, good to be here.
Yeah, welcome. All right, so it sounds like a big deal, yes? Poland's invitation to join the G20 made by President Trump. Talk us through what it means.
Well, we should say that it is a very nice gesture. One of the political commentaries working for quite a big daily newspaper in Poland said that we should treat Nawrocki's visit in Washington as a success because we know that Donald Trump is not very nice to every guest attending at the White House. So actually, Trump sprinkling Nawrocki with good words and extending this invitation and also talking about the security guarantees for Poland and so on, whether the US troops will be stationed in Poland or not, it's a good thing. So that's what major take from this. It's right. A good thing.
I mean, President Trump made quite a fuss, didn't he? I mean, there was a big flyover, Air Force flyover.
Absolutely.
All sorts of things going on. So clearly there is something special in the way that President Trump sees this relationship. But specifically on the G20, what does it mean?
That's a very good question. G20 is a group of countries, very diverse. You have developed economies, developing economies over there. And it works in a way that every year there is a rotating presidency. So next year the United States are holding this presidency. This year it's South Africa. And the country that has this rotating presidency can extend invitations to any country it wants and deems valuable to have at the table when the G20 summit is being hosted. So obviously Donald Trump used this prerogative, so to speak, that the US will be holding this rotating presidency next year and extended invitation to Poland. This isn't the first time, right, actually, and it's worth remembering that in 2017, Prime Minister Morawiecki attended the G20 summit when the invitation has been extended, as I believe, by Germany, who was holding the rotating presidency at the time. So this isn't the first time,
okay,
but a second time, but also a very nice gesture.
Nice gesture. We like it so far. But there's more detail here, is there? Because there are different levels of G20 membership.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's permanent members and then there are guests. What's the difference?
So it kind of works like a Netflix subscription.
Okay.
Right? So you have premium plus, ordinary premium, just, gold, silver, and so on. So G20 is organized in a way that it has 19 permanent member states. Just to make things clearer, G20, 19 member states,
right,
plus 2 international bodies, which are European Union and African Union, which joined the group in 2018 or 2019, a very recent addition to the group. So 19 member states, plus 2 international countries, plus you have a host of international bodies sitting on the G20 summits, like International Monetary Fund, and then you have Spain, which is also a big economy, but is not a permanent member of the group,
right,
but kind of permanent invitee.
Okay.
So in this way, every year this rotating presidency that I've mentioned changes hands. Spain always gets an invitation. So This is the only country which has the special status, not being a member of the group, but having the invitation extended every year.
Right. Okay. So that's muddied the waters a little bit.
Exactly. So let's.
So where would Poland fit in?
So let's move back just to summarize. Let's move back to this Netflix analogy.
Yeah, right.
So the member states, those 19, so they have this Premium Plus packet. Spain, because it has a seat every year at the table, but it's not a permanent member, just a permanent invitee.
Okay.
It has just an ordinary premium packet. then you can extend invitation to any country you want, but this is a one-time affair.
Right.
And that's the big question from Poland's perspective. So this would be like a gold or silver pass. And this is a big question from us. Are we being bumped to the silver status, or are we achieving like a gold status? Because from now on, Poland will be invited to every G20 summit, just like Spain.
Like a permanent invitee,
Exactly.
but not necessarily a permanent member.
Exactly. And this is where it gets even market. But please, let me not take over the show.
No. I want to hear this. Go on.
And this is when things get actually very interesting, because there is no formal application procedure. So there is no place where you can send a form.
Right.
There is no website where you can just click apply to G20. We don't see advertisements on YouTube running.
Right.
Has your country recently passed $1 trillion mark?
Right.
Apply to G20.
Right. Well, hold that thought, because it actually brings me to our first soundbite from Minister Sikorski. I think we've got that coming up.
Now that Poland has joined the $1 trillion club, I have been pushing for the United States to invite us to the G20 during their presidency next year. We have the right to do so not only already as one of the 20 largest economies in the world, but also as a country that presents a political and intellectual argument for the succession, because we are a country that has made a successful transformation from a planned economy to a free market economy, and we are an example for others to follow.
Right, so the minister seems to be saying two things. Number one, $1 trillion economy, that means Poland has to demand a seat at the G20 table. He's also saying that because Poland has been a beacon in transformation from a planned to a market economy, that strengthens its case. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, we have to make a distinction. Like, G20 is not a group of 20 biggest economies in the world.
Right.
Like, these are two separate groups of countries you can make. You can be a very big economy, but not be a permanent member of the G20. And Spain is an example. But you don't have to look far. Netherlands is another. Sometimes it is invited to G20 summits, but it doesn't even have this gold plus status Spain enjoys.
Right. Okay.
So this is like a completely different affair. I think what the foreign minister was trying to say, obviously we passed a mark and we've been touched upon, so to speak, by communism. So there was a gigantic transformation on our part. And because this transformation led us to cross this magic threshold of $1 trillion economy, this is why we potentially should be included, because it's a success story worth telling the world.
Included as a permanent member.
Exactly.
Okay, fine. Now, tell me, what's the overlap between the G20 and the European Union, for example? Is there stuff that both organizations kind of talk about, cover, address?
Well,
how do they work?
Yeah, exactly. From the perspective, if there's one international body, there's another international body, they should work in a similar manner, right? But those two cannot be more different from each other. The European Union has been established by a treaty. So it's a formal organization, so to speak. And G20 is an informal group. So it's just a bunch of countries getting together and saying, listen, we should meet once a year and talk a little bit about stuff, different stuff. You'll be holding a presidency next year, I'll be holding 2 years from now, and so on. And you will organize the agenda. Next year, some other guy will be organizing the agenda. So it's an informal format, not as European Union, which is a very formal, because there's a treaty to it, there are procedures, there are many bodies involved. This is an informal body. This is also the problem with the accession part, because there is no formal procedure. There is no one to ask. G20 doesn't even have a website.
Right.
Right? You have websites of the presidencies, so you can search G20 South Africa, and this is the presidency of South Africa is holding right now, and you will see on that website there will be an agenda and so on, but there is no like a separate G20 website, because there is no permanent secretariat, there is no permanent secretary general, so to speak. Presidency, every country is holding, and it's rotating. That's the governing structure of G20.
Right, so this particular country happens to be the president of the G20 this year.
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of, and this is touching also on the different levels of membership, how much influence would a country like Poland, which has just entered, and let's assume it's not a permanent member yet, how much influence does it have on those conversations?
from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Once you've entered the organization.
Yeah.
Well, I think we would need to have some time to like establish ourselves in the group, because it's an informal body. Many stuff is going on behind the scenes, right? And there is a question whether Poland has this capability to produce diplomacy on a very big global scale in an informal matter. We've passed a very important economic threshold, and it's a good information for us, but we are not like a global superpower. At best, Poland is just a regional power. So the question is whether our diplomacy even has resources to conduct this, wide-ranging consultations with Indonesia on one hand, South American countries on the other hand. Like, this is a completely different game,
right.
A game we've never played before. We aspire very much to play this game, but it takes time to reach the, let's just call it in a fancy speak, operational capability of British diplomacy, for example.
Now, just again, if you just pause there, because I do have a very interesting soundbite on precisely that issue. I think that should be ready. Coming up, Roland Freudenstein.
It should, considering its, sensational economic development of the last 34 years. And the people who decide about the G20 are the G20 countries. So it may become G21, but that will require some pretty smart Polish diplomacy in the 20 capitals.
Right, pretty smart Polish, which is exactly what you were touching on. Does Poland have the diplomatic heft, do you think, to make a mark from, perhaps not the first meeting, but going forward?
I think we should rephrase this question. Why? Because saying, does Poland have the diplomatic ability to convince other member states on its G20 membership, that's just one thing. But there's the other thing, which is whether they are willing to let anyone inside. And I think that's the more important question. Because if you let more countries in, you will have more applications, so to speak. So you will have other countries, Nigeria, for example. It's not a part of G20. So Nigerians can claim, listen, we've got more than 200 million population, obviously the biggest economy in Africa. Why aren't we invited to this format, which includes developing economies, right? So I think there is like a glass ceiling, so to speak, invisible diplomatic glass ceiling as to how big this body can become, because even having 20 countries at the table, things already start looking very unruly. Of course, you can organize things, you can arrange things in various ways, but even G7, which is a much smaller format, even in this smaller body, you can see very clear division lines. Some states think this way, other member states think it this way. In G20, stuff is much more difficult to establish.
Much more difficult, understood. But with Donald Trump supporting Poland's application, it's highly likely that they will be accepted.
We will have to ask other member states whether they would like to include Poland.
So they have to vote on this?
As I said, there is no like a formal procedure. I guess it would have to be like a unanimous.
Right.
I guess because there is no formal procedure, we cannot even give answer, and like 10 of the 19 member states have to approve some country's application.
So no application procedure, no formal acceptance procedure. Very difficult to. Okay. Now
it's like a cool kids club, right?
It sounds like
there is no formal application procedure to a cool kids club in a school.
Right.
Either you are cool,
either
or
you
are
or you're not. I want to talk in the last few minutes that we have left, Cooper. I want to talk about the impact that it would have, assuming that Poland gets in, on Polish businesses. Is it going to make a difference?
I think it can make a difference, because I like to think about the G20 not as a talking shop. Some people think about it as a talking shop. And when people say that some international body is a talking shop, this usually means, well, it's not important. It's just some people, just sitting, talking, not making any important decisions. But I think G20 summits and participating very actively in this forum is like a networking opportunity. So you need to send your people to work with other people, and this in itself is a value, because they can present your case and they can say, listen, Poland is a G20 member now, or we very much would like to join the group, or we are in the group as in the scenario you've described, So you need to talk with people from South America. Obviously, one potential direction of expansion for Polish businesses. You need to talk to people in Indonesia.
So it opens up channels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think it would help
Right.
in making them
Right.
wider.
Starts the conversation going now. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned South America, because it actually brings me to the Mercosur deal, which is a free trade agreement between a group of South American countries and the European Union, and Poland doesn't like it. Why?
No, we hate it.
Okay.
It's not even that we don't like it, we hate it. And we hate it because it also includes agriculture. Poland is the 5th biggest producer of food in the European Union. Polish food exports have been one of the main drivers of growth of the country over the past 20 or so years, and it still drives our growth. And basically what Polish farmers are saying is that having a free trade area with countries that are also strong in agriculture and food production will open the floodgates of a cheap South American produce flooding the European market and just driving local companies, local businesses, local farmers out of business. That's the big fear.
Okay, well, you talk about the big fear. We have a short soundbite that I'd like to share, a quote from Prime Minister Tusk, I think just coming up.
I will also find time to discuss in a one-on-one conversation with President Macron how to mitigate the effects of Mercosur. What I also said at the Cabinet Council and explained to the President that there is no one apart from Poland at the moment who wants to block Mercosur, so we can't vote it down. Poland will oppose Mercosur because we want to at least demonstrate that we will not let go when it comes to the interests of Polish agricultural producers. But we don't have partners to block it at the moment.
Z Francuzami mówiliśmy się, że skoro Francuzi nie chcą z nami budować tej mniejszości blokującej.
So, where does this leave Poland, Kuba?
Well, it leaves us in a very, very comfortable position. The government can have plausible deniability. It can say, well, we said no, but listen, it's the European Union. It's not only about us. It's
So plausible
also about...
deniability with the Polish population?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And the farmers?
The Prime Minister said, we are saying no, but what else can we do?
Right. And so, well, we'll see what happens and what this actually ends up meaning for the Polish agricultural industry. Kuba, unfortunately, we have to end it there. So much more I wish we could talk about, but thank you so much for sharing your analysis with the audience.
Sir. Pleasure.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this episode of News in Depth. Don't go away, though, lots more coming up. Goodbye.